Because video is must for the defense, meeting to get started and to get recorded. That's the first policy of the defense call for the doctorate.
Hey, ma'am, I can hear you.
Okay, I would appreciate if you can start your video, Mike.
Okay, okay, that's fine. I actually thought I did that already.
That's great.
Good
Okay,
morning, ma'am.
very good
Yeah,
morning. How's the morning
yeah.
going on? All good?
Well, pretty good.
That's nice.
I reckon this is Dr. Dulari.
Yes.
Oh, it's nice meeting you in person.
Nice meeting you too. All the very
Yeah,
best for this defense call. And
thanks.
we can kickstart this call. I will give you the agenda. I will share what we are going to get run through this call. Okay. So I would like to
Okay,
hear the introduction first from you. You need to present your slides here by sharing your screen and go through your slides, what you have written, what you have collected. So slide by slide, you just describe in one or two statements and then go to the next slide. Okay. That's how
okay,
you're going to complete the presentation. After you finish your introduction and your research topic presentation, I'm going to ask you some questions regarding your research. Okay? And after that, I'll be submitting
okay,
that.
okay.
I'll submitting your answers, I'll submitting your presentations to the university, and you're going to get grades depends on your answers on today's call. Okay?
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
All right. Cool.
So
All the very
you
best.
said I'm going to present from here.
Sure, please go ahead.
Okay, okay, thanks, ma'am. Um, I've sent in a request now.
Yep. I have allowed that.
Okay. Can you see my screen, ma'am?
No, not yet. Are you sharing already? I still can't say it.
Okay, I'm actually sharing.
Okay.
Mm, I'm sharing already, but I
Maybe you
can't
can stop
see.
and reshare again.
Okay.
Yeah,
You can see now, ma'am.
I can see that.
Um, I
Yes,
I take it to slideshow.
sure.
Would that be okay?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Yeah, my name is Michael Ogbekile Ogochukwu Ifesemen. I'm a Nigerian
Mm-hmm.
and a Nigerian who is keen on seeking knowledge
Okay.
by constantly interacting with people in the academia to get more knowledge. If you ask me, I would say I'm here for a project defense. Rather, I'm here to learn from this body because a project defense really is about proving whether I wrote it myself, which that is not in contest, but
Mm-hmm.
rather I'll say I'm here for evaluation, assessment, and to take feedback that will enrich my learning.
Right.
So the topic before me is effective policy and enforcement for resolving atrocities or conflicts enabled by landed property ownership in Nigeria.
Okay.
And my supervisor, Dr. Dulari Rajput, and this is for Swiss International in fulfillment for Swiss International Business Management School.
Yep.
And the agenda here, I have introduction, I have literature review, methodology, findings, conclusion, and recommendations.
Great.
Next
Okay.
slide. Talking about the introduction, in Nigeria, the communal land ownership tradition often conflicts with modern laws, like the law of shortcomings and land administration. Laws, issues like corrupt practices and historical struggle remain under-addressed, highlighting the need to understand the correlation between land-related crisis and weak law implementation. If I may expatiate on that, land ownership in Nigeria has traditionally been communal.
Okay.
But the introduction of modern land laws, such as Land Use Act, as earlier said, has often clashed with customary rights, leading to persistent conflicts. And it says again that both, despite numerous discussions and scholarly works on this, it continues to pose a problem, which has resulted to digging into these studies. However, while much has been written or said about it, little attention has been given to how poor governance and abuse of land have facilitated other forms of crime, which is the main focus of this research. The study therefore aims to bridge the gap by examining how weak enforcement and abuse of Land Use Act have fueled these various crises I'm talking about, while also drawing connection between the struggle for land and broader historical patterns and conflicts. If you ask me at this point, even though not expressly stated, the hypothesis in my write-up, the hypothesis for me here, which is that there is link between land conflicts and some crimes in the society. Thank you. I go to background. The background and origins to concept of land use ownership. Landed property initially meant to serve basic needs such as farming and the rest, as farming, etc., has expanded to purposes that can accommodate crime due to population growth. Understanding these dynamics can help resolve land conflicts, guide culturally sensitive. So, like I said again, the background has looked at it from 4 different perspectives, namely primary purpose of land, evolving land use management, which is caused by population, and justification for increased policy, and policy and resolution. That's what it's. I'm talking about the primary purpose. Land was originally intended for essential needs like shelter, farming, commerce, transportation, etc., and recreation, but has been misused by criminal activities. That in this country, in this part of my world, some criminals, because no proper control on land, have criminally hijacked certain areas, all in the disguise of the lapses in the land use, and they claim and commit atrocities. So, 2, evolving land use management challenges. I said, despite previous studies and population growth and technology advancement continue to change land patterns, requiring stronger regulatory measures. And the 3rd one I want to talk about is the justification for increased control, which, according to Williams, 1992, argued for continuous improvement in the regulation of landed properties, supporting need for this study to address the challenges. Then the 4th one being policy and conflict resolution, understanding the evolving nature of land-related conflicts can help develop culturally sensitive policies to reduce crimes and conflicts arising from thereof. So what I mean by this again is that if people are not aware that some of these crimes we see in the society are enabled by conflict, the lapses, inadequacies in the landed property management, it will not, once they understand it, it will help in building more more regulations to guide it. Sorry, at this point, I want to state something in the title. The word effective there, if you ask me, what does effective represent there? Effective suggests that it's either that we have measures in place that are not inadequate, or measures are not in place, or we don't have measures to address this perspective I'm coming from.
Okay.
So I talk on a problem statements.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I'm jumping. Oh my God. Okay, the problem statement, it says the lack of effective ownership regulations in Nigeria has led to abuse, crime, and corruption with lasting consequences for future generations, if not addressed. Just like I said, and I want to repeat that bit, that the lack of effective control and enforcement of land ownership and rent regulations in Nigeria has led to abuse. I call it abuse, crime and corruption, necessitating urgent attention to prevent lasting negative impacts on the future generations. So, aims and objective. The study aims, like I mentioned earlier on, aims to highlight crimes enabled by inadequate administration of land ownership and rent in Nigeria and recommend remedies. It explores the relationship, which I said is my main focus, and where I drew my hypothesis from, between these inadequacies and crimes, how they foster security, threats, and how these issues can be resolved. Okay. So again, on that objectives, I may want to expand again, that is the studies atrocities linked to poor administration, control of landed property. It's not as if some of these crimes are not already existent, but then the prevalence, the enablement, they are enabled, further enabled by the lapses in landed property administration. It seeks to highlight how these inadequacies continue to contribute to security and criminal activities. The research also aims to establish the link between property mismanagement and peace-threatening activities, because all these crimes I talk about threaten the peace of the society. It offers insights into how people exploit weak property regulations for criminal gain. Just like I said earlier on, they take advantage of the weak lapses and exploit negatively. Yeah. It's also, so the study proposes the recommendations, which is the main aim, to improve governance and reduce crime related to this landed property ownership. Going into research objective. Okay, what I just said, sorry, I handled the both research objective and the research aims together. So the scope of the study analyzes the effects of poor government regulation and corrupt practices in land ownership, is been mentioned, and rent, payments within a changing global context, using personal observations and unstructured random interviews for data collection. So, if I may, once again, in the course of this research, this study, I personally encountered something to buttress this aspect. I live in the neighborhood where government agents sent me what we call tenement rates for my property. And in the same neighborhood, they sent different tenement rates to different people, different prices on it, which shows that most of them are not really the way they should be. So literature review. The researcher extensively reviewed existing literature on conflict and administration of landed property ownership to validate findings and complement data from observations and interviews. However, no existing studies explicitly linked inadequacies in property administration to enablement of crime. What am I saying there? Yes, several researches, several studies are available on this, which have actually helped to build my data. Because eventually, literature review that is supposed to be secondary data, I have used it to advantage as primary data. So it complements primary data. So a lot of discussion on this subject. I think this prevalence, these inadequacies to the prevalence of most of this crime I talked about. So methodology, that's an interesting area for me here. This study, I've used the mixed methodology approach with qualitative focus. So it's more qualitative focus, but qualitative focus, but I still have some bit of quantitative. Quantitative in the sense that some persons were visited, some states were some states were visited and all whatnot. So it says here that it incorporated some quantitative elements using cross-sectional and longitudinal designs to observe behaviors in toll collection parks, in toll collection centers, which includes parks and fees and property ownership processing through participant and non-participant observation. Okay, that is what I may want to expand on a bit. Findings can inform, participant observation, unstructured interviews, and literature review for comprehensive analysis. What do I mean by non-participant observation in these studies? By non-participant observation, I mean observing participants or activities without being part of it. Then being a participant means embedding myself into the process and study from that angle. Also, by cross-sectional design, I mean where data was collected through observation of some groups of people over a long space of time and some at intervals, whereas for longitudinal, it was one-off observation. Limitations.
And what do you mean by unstructured interviews? Why do you call it unstructured?
Okay, unstructured interview means nothing really was written out. You just see people, you just get into discussion, and unknown to them, you're actually interviewing them. You just get into a discussion, and you're picking what you're picking. You make it like open-ended, and at times a mix of some closed-ended questions, yes, no. So that's what I mean unstructured. I didn't write out any form, any questionnaire for that purpose. So that's what I mean by unstructured.
But
so talking about contribution to the body of knowledge in Nigeria, knowledge and the Nigerian society at large. So contribution to knowledge. The study expands existing literature by highlighting, the link between land conflicts and crime, identifying research gaps, and reinforcing research gaps, identify research gaps, and reinforcing past recommendations from a new perspective. Findings can inform policies to enhance security, optimize manpower allocation, improve governance efficiency, and boost government revenue by reducing financial leakages. Again, I want to talk on this a bit. When I said identify research gaps, like I said, the first research gap for me there is that this perspective of linking certain crime to the conflicts in landed property has never been captured by any. So, and it aligns the crime with I want to expand on it that for Nigeria, that's contribution. For Nigeria, maybe some other third world countries, it has highlighted sorry, it highlights uh, it highlights correlation between conflicts and overland, which is what I've been measuring. That's for Nigeria. And that enlightenment will help in policy building. So that for me is a contribution. Expand the scope of existing literature, of course, the subject, thus creating more gaps through its highlighted limitations for future research, while also adding voice to existing recommendations from different perspectives. Yes, like I said, a lot of recommendations are abound in the industry with respect to this, but viewing it from this perspective and adding voice to them. So I've not come to condemn any of the old recommendations, rather adding voice to it and creating another perspective to it. Some of the recommendations provided by the researcher will not only address these findings in this study, but also address some other areas in life, such as redirection of appropriate resources. Because, hello, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm here.
Redirection of resources. When government knows about this and we're able to address some of it, people who collect money for themselves for self-aggrandizement, like I said, different views, they collect it rather than now. If government is aware of this, the money goes straight into government coffers, and it will enhance government purse for the betterment of the public in general. So then, talking about body of knowledge, which I've first talked about Nigeria. The study expands existing literature. Yes, I've talked about it, and the link of land identifying research gaps. Impact on that's the first one on a body of knowledge. So I want to go to limitations. Data collection. Data collection and accessibility, validity, dependent on endorsements from key local figures, while reluctance from officials. Of course, in the process of this research, I met some officials in government and registries, and you find some of them reluctant to give information and all whatnot. So you find ways around it to give them officials and challenges like traveling costs and security risk in certain areas affected by data gathering, scope and constraints, legal concerns. Legal concerns is one of them. Limited concerns, concerns, limited technology use. The study did not redefine property ownership laws or taxes, and while no statistical correlation was provided, empirical reasoning was used, highlighting areas for future research. Talking about this, I just remembered that there's something I didn't say on methodology. And in spite of the fact, if I may, in spite of the fact that is empirical research, like I said, there's some bit of quantitative there, and which means I fail to say that I've used 9 states out of Nigeria, 36 states, 9 states plus Abuja out of Nigeria, 36 states, then 3 other neighboring states within West Africa to do these studies. I've interviewed, I've seen a lot of sites, visited, personally encountered. So this research, basically, it's more of experience and drawing deductions from it. I didn't say something about deductive. I've used deductive reasoning, which, if I may, maybe inferential analysis to draw my conclusions based on my observations and experiences. So one of the limitations, again, remain that it's not a statistical, in which case I've not drawn any mathematical correlation of the mathematical figure for correlation. So that also remains a research gap for future researchers to pick on. So, sorry. Findings. The study identifies various crimes and illicit activities linked to inadequate sorry, sorry, it's the screen I'm pulling off. Linking to inadequacy in the administration of landed property ownership. My assess of my worry, why the use of this word inadequacies? Inadequacies have actually reflected in the bulk of my write-up. Why? Because inadequacies, that word captures a lot for me. It captures lack of control, corruption, and all what. So I've embodied all as inadequacies. Okay. So then analysis, weak control and management property ownership enable territorial conflicts and security threats, highlighting the need for effective implementation. So, and let me also explain again that the findings include a lot of atrocities already not put in this presentation as in my write-up. Presentations such as I went to a park at a place called Oniru Park in Lagos, Oniru Beach. The beach has long been, government is no more using the beach. Decommissioned, the word is decommissioned. Had long been decommissioned. But when I got to that point, there were still some boys, criminals, who had tickets to sell, to lure people into the beach. I actually went with someone. When I saw the behavior at the beach entrance, they sold me ticket, government ticket. Meanwhile, the place has been decommissioned. I entered about 100 meters into the beach. I saw criminals all over with stone faces. You will know these are criminals. So I went back just to protect the other person, knowing that we're two. I went back, the person continued. So knowing that I was there, the person came out freely. That's one of the crimes atrocities this has enabled. If you walk on Nigerian bus stops, unlike Nigerian roads, unlike the Western world, every bus stop you have has ownership of touts. Touts laying claims to ownership of parts that you have to give them things by force. You have to pay by force. Land that does not belong to them, they just claim. Why is this done? Because of lack of control. Because if government had done proper control, putting cameras, reducing those people, all this would address all that. You go to markets, you get to marketplaces, you find out who are not owners of the marketplaces. They are extorting money from market women, doing all sorts. If government had done proper policing in such places, such crimes will not prevail. And not only prevail, they go in such a way that when you don't give them this thing, they inflict injuries on you. A lot of them. We talk about the herdsmen in the name of religion, killing people on their farmlands, causing even food security. So there are a lot of, to name just a few, there are a lot of findings which I didn't put here. So, like I said, it includes a lot of atrocities not captured here. The data analysis of the data findings of this study indicate that some atrocities related to space and territorial control have enabled to prevail and persist because of inadequacies in control. I just said that, I'm only just putting it in better perspective. So conclusion and recommendation. The study meets the objectives by exploring the correlation, which, like I said, is that correlation I try to establish. And if you ask me again, my hypothesis, even though not expressly put here, is that there's a link between those crimes. So the study meets its objectives by exploring the correlation between inadequacies in land administration and prevalence of related crimes, addressing the research hypothesis, even though, like I said, I didn't put it. Recommendations, findings serve as a guide for policy makers. Of course, the findings I have all in my submission, a lot of them, including placing cameras, even to reduce the policemen who are on the streets on cameras to replace these policemen, thereby also reducing payment paid to them for doing nothing. Some policemen in Nigeria who use touts to stay on the way. They use people at the toll gates extort money rather than sending the money to government. The money goes into their pockets. But with cameras in those places, it will replace human efforts. So, I mean, we should take advantage of technology. Make it such that you swap by cards, the money goes straight into government. So that's why findings serve as a guide for policymakers, findings which I did put here, for policymakers and law enforcement to formulate measures addressing these gaps with specific recommendations provided in the study. Thank you.
Okay, that's great, Mike. Thank you so much for your explanation and the journey and the study you have brought here about the Nigeria land conflicts. Appreciate that. So I will ask you a couple of questions based on your study, based on your topic, and I expect you to answer it, little quickly and honestly. How did it go and how did you resolve it? Okay. So the first question is, I have just written down my questions. Right. So the first question is, how does your study contribute to the existing literature on land governance and conflict resolution?
Okay. Like I already said in my during this presentation, that the perspective I've come from, linkage, adds to the body of knowledge first and foremost. People will look at it from that perspective, people will read, and that's body of knowledge. And maybe people have not looked at it from this angle before. There's still an angle I didn't mention in this presentation. If you notice in my write-up, which I believe Doctor has read, and you notice that I linked this even to the scriptures, the Bible and the Quran. I linked it. Some persons might ask if it's a law dissertation I'm doing, I won't link it to that.
Okay.
Because in law, I won't be talking about the scriptures. But because this is a bit secular, so I've looked at this study from both secular and scriptural background. And why am I comfortable to even use scriptural background? Because I know that over 85% of the world population believe in scriptures. So it gives me that rest of mind to do that. So I linked it from even when the Lot and Abraham, where they struggled for land. I also linked this research, this study, to land conflict being a primal thing. That's all animals. I talked in my write-up, I talked about how apes and the rest use urine to mark their territories. Lions, they all do territory. So it's a thing of the animal kingdom. I went further to link it to when evolution came in the years 1066, when common law came and they started making all this. So in all of this, there are conflicts associated with land, but none has made this linkage, especially that in Nigeria, that this some crime like the parks and the rest, crime committed
Mike, are you there?
You are not to be there. Okay, ma'am. So again,
Yeah, so the next
if
question I
you
would ask on the policy applications. So, what policy recommendations from your study do you think are most feasible for the implementation?
okay, I didn't put that in my write-up. Rather, I wrote topics. Placing cameras on the streets, reducing people from the streets. They are not things you just on your own you do there. They have to go through process,
So, you mean
policy process, isn't it?
improved security policies, you mean there? Improved safety
Yes, that's
policies.
what I mean. Improve security policies like putting cameras in the land registries held accountable for atrocities they commit. In my summation, I also talked about digitalizing everything so you have less of human interface, taking advantage of technology. So all those things have to go through policy making.
Right. The next one is, what role should traditional and community leaders play in land dispute resolution?
Okay. Um, when, even them, even the community leaders, because the recommendation is for all governments, everybody alike. So when this awareness is created, it guides our actions. It guides the actions of the political leaders. It guides the actions of even the common man like me and every other person. So,
Got it. Okay. How do land disputes affect economic growth and stability in Nigeria?
okay. Um, Money that should go to governments is going to individuals on its own. It speaks for itself. So rather than money going to government to be used for the benefit of Nigerians, it trains the economy of the country. And when this is addressed, I earlier said toll gates and the rest, using cards to handle payments and all whatnot, the money goes to the government direct, thereby improving government pulse. Then I talked about not people who are not supposed to be there committing atrocities. I mean, like the police force, for example, making them out of job. Yes, it will create a momentary unemployment. Unemployment in the sense that they cost it for themselves. So government will not pay them. All that money will be used for the system. At this point, there was something I wanted to mention. I'll remember, it's keeping me. It's still about limitations.
That's okay. All right.
Yeah.
The last one I would like to ask. How can future research build on your findings to further improve land conflict resolution?
Okay. Um, in mentioning my limitations, I said something that I only use empirical research.
Yeah.
I've not done statistical. So a future, if I were to be a future researcher to do this again, I may want to approach it using statistical data, which when displayed, you know what you're talking. I've said that everything here I've done through deductive reasoning, empirical research, and all that. Yeah, thanks.
Don't you think your statistical data or the mathematical data would have helped the future researcher to, have the strong bind on the topic? Don't you think so?
Okay. We're saying the same thing. I've left that as a gap.
Okay.
A future researcher would want to use that to build up.
All right, so I guess that's all the questions from my side, and I congratulate you here for completing defense process for your doctoral degree transformation or the journey. Congratulations, and let's wait from the
Thank you,
institute and
ma'am.
the university to get back to you
Thank
on
you,
your
ma'am.
course and the percentage and on your degree. Thank you,
Thank
Mike.
you, ma'am.
Have a great
And
day.
it's nice meeting you.
Thank you
Such
so
a
much.
cute woman. I didn't know.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Yeah.